The next thing we're going to look at is importing and editing existing components. This is working from existing geometry. One of the things that Fusion has the ability to do is to pull data in from just about any other CAD system. Any translation or say a SolidWorks part, CATIA part or Creo part is done in the cloud through the upload function. So the same process that you might use to go into a project, click the upload button and pull in an existing Fusion file can be used to pull in data from other sources. Some of the standard formats, STEP, IGES, etc. Can be pulled directly in by saying create a new design from file, and I'll use that process as well. Once the set data is put in, if it can be automatically stitched into a solid, or in the case of say a STEP file, where it probably already is a solid, you have the ability to go ahead and just do direct modeling and make modifications to that geometry. You also have the ability to turn on design history, so modifications made to that model can be tracked and also edited. So let's take a few minutes and walk through the process. So what we're going to do, I'm now going to actually open up an existing design. So if I go into a few back to, hopefully it's come up on the screen. I don't need that one anymore. I don't know, I might just keep that open. You may use that later on. So back into data panel. Now, if you remember from yesterday, the data panel, try not to use that backup one there. If you use that, that actually leaves the whole project that you're in and goes to the top level projects. By hovering over the one arrow there, you can go back to the various different folders in the previous set there. So we've got importing, and we've got a nice little imported design here. So I open this. So we have the file here that you can edit. But to show this technique, I have an IGES file that I have saved on my hard drive. So what I've done, I've uploaded this up. But what I can do is if I go File, New Design from File, and what I've got in my hard drive, I've got importing, and it is an IGES file you can see there. So I'm going to open it there. So this should now, he says, yep, it's open this untitled one, which is exactly the same file, but what I've done, I've actually imported this one from my hard drive. And you can see it actually opened it pretty quickly, and you see it's been able to stitch it into this solid model. Yeah, if I wanted to check it was solid, you know, if I go into inspect and go into section analysis, pick up on a face, then you can actually see it has actually brought it through as a solid. I can spin that around. So you can see there we've actually got a solid model from the IGES folder. It's a very quick and easy way to actually check that. I'll take a look at the body. There's a lots of different things that probably need to be tweaked on it. So if we actually look here, let's spin this around a little bit. There. We've got a couple of ribs there. So if I'm actually looking at, you know, these particular ribs here, they might not be needed. I may decide that I want to actually get rid of them. So if I select this face, now depending on how I select this, I might get different results coming from it. So if I was to select this face here and just press delete, you'll notice that the whole rib has gone and the whole side has gone, which I didn't really want. If I click on this particular face here and press delete, you'll notice now it's actually deleted a certain feature, but it's actually gone all the way across. And if I was actually to spin it around just a touch and come on to this face here and now press delete, it just actually removes that particular feature, which is what I wanted. Now the thing is as well, if I actually try to do the same on this side, which would be just to delete that face and press delete, it's actually done it. So that's actually pretty good. So what I've just quickly done now, I've just quickly modified that particular part of the model. Again, you can always undo if you've done that. Now, one thing I am actually doing now, you'll notice I've got no timeline in here. I can at any time right click up here and capture design history and turn it on. So I've now actually got a timeline there picking up my base feature. I could have possibly undone them bits that I've just done, but that'll be fine for what I'm doing or need to do on this. Other things that we can do, again, if I now move to, let's have a look, somewhere on here where we can do something. Let's spin it around a little bit. There we go. This particular feature here, yeah, maybe it's not the result I wanted. So we can play and have a bit of an experiment. So if I click that and press delete, you notice it goes sharp. Same on this side. Click, press delete, it goes sharp. So I'm actually now modifying this existing model. If I was to right click, press pull, click on that edge, you'll notice I can actually change the size of that now, and it's actually putting it in as a fillet. I'm not so sure if it would have recognized it as a fillet initially, but now that I've deleted it, I'm putting it in a fillet. So it's actually making it tangential as well, because as I'm doing it, it's making sure that that is a tangential fillet to that side. So I could actually make that, say, let's have a see what it looks like at 20 millimeters. It's a nice smooth curve. Yep. Press OK on that, spin it around slightly, and then pick the same edge. Oops. Right click, press pull, same edge, and again I'm doing the same. So I'm being able to modify this edges file, make it more to what I want it to be able to do. If I then look and I say want to move now to the front of this, so let's come along there. Let's zoom into the front here. Yeah, so hopefully this is, a lot of this is, pardon me, is getting a feel for the actual tool itself and how it works. If I move to the front end of the model, I want to get rid of this notch in this face, this little notch here. If I click the face and press delete, so if I was just to click that face and press delete, you'll notice it actually deletes the whole thing, which I didn't want. Yep. I'll lose a lot of geometry. Selecting the little face, so if I was to come here and just select that little face there, if I can pick up on it there, and press delete, I didn't like that. Let's try again. Select, come here, we should be able to select that and press delete. Oh, delete 3 faces more. Didn't like that. Let's undo, undo. If I actually, that's what it is, it doesn't like it because it doesn't know what it wants to do, but if I select possibly that face and press delete, there you go, that's what we wanted. So again, it's one of these, it's a bit of experimentation, trying different things, and say it didn't work just by pressing one face or the other face, but by actually pressing both. What it's done is actually give us now and got rid of that notch. We can also change selection options. For this, I'm going to use the Move Copy tool. What I'm actually going to do now, looking at this, is I'm going to try and make some modifications here. For this, I'm going to use the Move Copy tool. So if I was to right click and Move Copy, and what I want to do, I'm actually going to do some modifications on here. I could here, if I wanted to, I can select bodies. So at the minute, if I was to hover over this, I'd be selecting the whole body. Yeah, it allows me here to select components, faces, and sketch objects. So if you have sketch elements you want to move around, you can use this same tool. For this, I'm just going to use faces. So I'm going to change it to faces. And for this, I'll use the window select select the actual cylinder faces and the two faces that are connecting to it. So I'm going to just spin this around a little bit, and hopefully I'm just going to window select that. And then using the manipulators, I'm just going to move it down 3 millimeters. So if I spin it around so you can actually see what's happening here, if I just pull that, you'll see I'm actually being able to move it down. I could move it across like yesterday when we were doing the sculpting. It's the same manipulators. I can spin it round. I can do all them types of modifications here. So if I wanted to spin it, I'll do it anyway. There you go. I can actually spin and modify that round. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to move that down a little bit. If I press OK, yep, it's made that quick and simple modification to it. Again, with very little effort, and Fusion's done it all for me. Now, if I want to do something a little bit more drastic, I'm going to use the Move Copy. Now, I could, again, if I wanted to move copy, I can find it M shortcut, or I can find it in the toolbar, in the modifier toolbar, or because it was the last command I used, right click, and it's just at the top. This time, I'm going to select a few more of these faces. I'm going to select this face and this face, and let's see if I can spin this round a little bit and select that face as well there. So I'm selecting a little bit more this time. Now, one of the things that I can do is I can actually set the pivot point of this. So up here, if I go into pivot point, I can actually now select where I want to move this from. So you'll notice if I hover over a side, then I've got different icons that come up. So I've got a triangle, which is the notifying me the midpoint of a line. I've got a circle, which is the end point. I've got a square, which is the center of the shape. I'm just going to pick on, say, that point there. Now, one thing I need to do once I've set a new pivot point is to actually come back up and say done. So that's my new pivot point. And then using this, I can actually change and modify it. Now, you'll notice that one of the things I haven't selected there. So let me go back into my selection and pick, oh no, let's go back. Let's go take that back to 0, because what I want to do is I want to select that other bit. So put that to 0. Let's go that. What I want to do is select them, that, and hopefully spin it round. Select that one. Yeah, set my pivot point to that point, tick it, and then what I can do here is, there we go, move it and spin it round. Yeah, and so let's put that as minus 22 degrees. Minus 22 degrees. Press OK. And you can see quite a drastic change now in our model. But it's been actually pretty problem-free, pretty simple to do. And it's a lot more complex than just sliding a few faces around or deleting a fillet or two. But it is pretty simple. Then moving on, let's have a look at another part of this model. So let's have a see now. Let's spin this round. So maybe here's something that we can do here. We have a couple of ribs that are missing an opportunity to add some reinforcement around this particular hole, so that these ribs have come to this rather than actually trying to come near this hole to give it a bit more reinforcement. So if I start the move copy again, repeat move copy. What I want to do, I want to select the pivot point to be the radius center. So what I want to do is make a pivot point there. So I'm going to just zoom in here, set the pivot point, and I want the pivot point to be, let's have a see if I can pick this up. There you go, I think that's picked it up there. Yeah, so it's picked up that pivot point. And tick that. Or maybe I need to select the inside face first. That's what I've done wrong. So again, just X that. Always something. Pick that inside face. Hold on. Cancel that and start it again. Repeat move. Faces. Select that particular face. Select the pivot point. Pivot point wants to be the center of that, and then hopefully I might need to click done. Now you see it moves that, but not the outer. So what I must need to do is select that outer face as well. There you go. So we can actually quickly just modify and move that around. So we've got that one. And press OK. So you can see now how quickly that was to modify and change. We can actually look at doing exactly the same on this one. So right click, repeat move, that face and say that face. We want to set the pivot point to be around about the middle of there. Oh, there we go. That bit. Click the tick and hopefully we can move it. Yeah. And I think the distance was around about 6 that we put in there before. So I changed that, put -6. So we've got a roundabout way of modifying and changing. Again, dead quick way of doing it. There's a lot of opportunities to be able to load in, some really old models that, you've got back, say, from years ago, and modify them and save them and move on. So one of the last things that I want to show just on this model, if I was just to slip and come to the actual front of the model, spin it around a little bit, sorry about this, so there, and if I was to select that front face, I use the press pull, again, we can actually just press pull that, backwards and forwards in there. So again, you can use the press pull on any of the features. But what we can also do, right click, move and copy. If I was to select this front face, you see all these selection points that come up. When I talked about moving the actual pivot point, if I was just to come up to this top surface there and select that surface using that point, that becomes my pivot point. So I can now just modify and change the angle there around that pivot point. So again, it's pretty easy, and it's a pretty quick and cool sort of option to be able to use. You can simply just grab it, move it. It's just another way of looking at, working with it from there. I can actually just, if I didn't want to, I could pull it from there using that move and copy tool. I can do planar, but because of the particular type of geometry, you can see what's happening. If I'm not careful, I'm filling in that hole. So different pickups, that's not doing anything to it. It's one of these, you play about with it and see how it affects the actual model itself. You see that it's pretty good for using the the rotating in certain directions. They can do, and you can get a very quick and complicated model and design easily and rapidly. So that's really just importing and editing existing geometry. So there you go. This is all in the PowerPoint as well. So it gives you an idea of what you can do and what you can't do. If we then go on to the next little bit, which is it's about bodies versus components. And this bit now should take us up to we've got about 5-minute discussion, and then about a half an hour more showing a little bit on joints and assemblies, and then we'll have a little bit of a break. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a new design, a quick sketch. So if I go back now to this, all I'm going to do is start a new design from scratch. Yeah, I'm going to start a quick sketch. I'm going to just go a rectangle there. And I'm just going to extrude that. a certain distance. Yep. By default, this comes up as a new body. If I press OK, yeah. If you take a look in the timeline browser, I've now got that initial sketch, and I've got that extrusion that I've done. Maybe add a few more fillets, so if I wanted to modify fillet, just add a fillet in there, a few edges. If I wanted to, you can window select as well, so you can actually pick the whole object. Sorry, because I've just deselected them. And you can, add the fillets, press OK, and it's add that fillet to that timeline. You can see this feature has now been added to the timeline at the top level of this component. It's because I've done these actions in this component. It's very important to think about this top level is not necessarily being an assembly, but as a component. So it's able to do things like create drawings from the features and bodies that have been created. You can see my body in the folder. You can turn it on or off. So in the folder here, the bodies, turn the body on or off. If I now want to start building an assembly or something I would think of as an assembly, and I wish I had really created a subcomponent to the design of this box, you can still do that. There are a few different techniques, some a bit more elaborate than others, but this is a fairly straightforward operation. If I right click on the top level, I can select add component. So here I can add a new component there, and it creates a new component in there. I can name that component if I want. So if I wanted to name this as say box, name it as box. You'll notice now at the moment there is nothing in there. Now what I can do here is I can actually drag in this box here stuff that I've done before, so I can actually drag. If I can get it, let's go into bodies. I can actually drag this body and throw it in there, and it's gone. It's now in the box. The bodies is in the box. In front of the bodies there. Yeah, let's see how we sketch. I think sketch box. There you go, and I've got sketches in there now. So all that original design features that I did, I've now managed to put into this box. So everything now is related to the box there. If I add another component, so if I now go now and add a new component, and I call it component 2, I'll leave it as it is. You'll notice now that's now active. If I was to do any sketching here now, so say this time I'll do a circle. I'll sketch a circle. Stop sketching and just extrude that circle. Not too bothered at the minute. There. Okay. That now body for this has been added to this component. And the only thing that I'm seeing in my timeline down at the bottom is this component. If I was to go back to my box, activate my box, you'll notice this has now gone to just the box feature. If I go all the way up to the top and activate all of it, I get everything being shown. So each one of these is its own separate feature. So if you're in a hurry and you say we need components to do joints, do drawings and stuff, if I've been in a hurry and I've just done a concept design just using bodies, I can go back and I can create component from the features. I can create it from the bodies. Can always move and add them and create what I need, the bodies and the features and the sketches for a particular component, and move it around in the folders to correspond to what I really needed. So you can always go back. It's flexible the way that you do it. If you're in a hurry and forget about rule 1 and forget to create components at the beginning, you can go back later and tidy up your design. If you're creating a design that does not have joints and everything is stuck in place, maybe a jewelry box with some feature panels just stuck to it, you might find that just using bodies is fine for your design. If it's got moving joints, then you need to use components. That's the thing. If it's moving, you've got to use components. If it's not moving and it's just static and it's just been a visual design, visual concept, you possibly don't need components. If you want drawings or separate individual parts, then you need components. So depending on what your students are after, there are a number of options available to them. Going back to the previous model, one thing that I don't think we covered anywhere else is this shortened adoption course is adding a thread to a component. So if I, very quickly on here, add in a thread. If we go over to the hole in this component here, so we go to this part and we go create thread there, it will automatically pick up the nearest closest standard size to it. We can modify the thread with the drop down boxes, but what is really interesting for those of you doing additive manufacturing or 3D printing, this currently is a nice looking thread. Yeah, if you look at that, it looks like a nice thread. Yeah, if I went OK, it looks visually nice. And if I wanted to do, I could click on this and I could go create, and I could create a thread on the top part that might not have to be full length. Maybe I only want it part length, so I could put something on it. Go OK, and visually, looking at that, it looks okay, but it is only currently visual. However, if you're into 3D manufacturing, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, the problem is when you go to print it, it's only visual, so you won't end up with a thread. But one of the things that is optional in that thread tool, so if I went back to this, the outside one, here is to actually go modeled. And what this model will do actually then, if I press OK, it will actually give me a physical thread model there. So having this option for 3D printing is essential. Because we want some clearance in the thread with the expansion and contraction with 3D printing process, you can actually, using the press pull tool, pick up on one side of the thread face and pull it slightly. So what you can actually do, if I press pull, I can actually come in here, pick up on one side, and if I zoom in, I can actually just pull in just a touch to the 0.01 of a millimeter. Okay, and that's now actually given me a bit of clearance on my thread. So there's a lot of things that you can actually, are cool with Infusion that you can do.